The battle with the wives of the barbarians was no less cruel than with themselves. They fought with axes and lances, placing the carts in a circle and climbing on them. Their deaths were as impressive as the battle itself. When the embassy sent to marry did not achieve freedom and immunity for them, they strangled their children or tore them to pieces, while themselves, inflicting wounds on each other and making loops from their own hair, hung themselves on trees or on the shafts of wagons. From the words of Lucius Annaeus Florus, Roman historian of the 1st century AD, there are many such testimonies about the courage and indestructible fighting spirit of various barbarian peoples in the texts of the ancient Romans. The German historian of the 19th century, Delbruck, in his fundamental work The History of Military Art, devoted a separate chapter to the confrontation between the army of ancient Rome and the barbarians, who threatened its very existence in the early centuries of Roman history, and even later. The Romans often suffered defeats from the Gauls, Germans, and other peoples, whose level of development at that time was significantly lower than the Roman one. On this occasion, Delbruck noted, barbarians have the advantage over civilized peoples that they have animal instincts and severity. Civilization ennobles a person, makes him more sensitive and thereby lowers his combat capability not only in terms of bodily strength, but also in terms of psychological uplift. Any part of the Romans, living at home as townspeople or peasants, could not resist the same number of barbarians and probably would have fled from them without a fight. Only the creation of closely knit tactical units, cohorts, made them equal in strength. However, this author further contradicts his own conclusion. The subtleties of building a cohort and echelon tactics are still not enough to defeat the seething courage of the barbarian hordes, if they also outnumber the enemy. But if it's not the superiority of Roman tactics, then what is the secret of Rome's military success? Maybe in better weapons and armor? Rome at the beginning of the 1st century AD was able to provide legionnaires with serious protection in the form of plate armor, larica segmentata, and the barbarians sometimes had chainmail only among the leaders in their close squad. However, the Romans did not have such an advantage before, but they managed to defeat the barbarians. Moreover, sometimes the Romans recognized the superiority of certain types of weapons of the barbarians opposing them and adopted it themselves. For example, in the 3rd century BC, AD legionnaires changed the traditional gladius to a longer spada. Of course, the Romans were helped by their famous discipline, organization, and perseverance. The Roman military said about the Gauls, in the first violent attack, they are more dangerous than men. At the first rebuff, they are weaker than women. The inability to maintain morale for a long time was the Achilles heel of almost all barbarian armies. Many battles between the Romans and the barbarians fit into a simple scheme. First, the enemy pushes the Romans. Then the Romans stubbornly defend themselves, and in the finale they strike with cohorts previously prudently put into reserve, and the barbarians flee without looking back, not even trying to resist. It is impossible not to pay tribute to the Roman organization. Delbruck wrote, the Roman army was not just a mass, but an organized mass, and in view of this it was a diverse living organism. This required not only soldiers and weapons, cavalry, and foot soldiers, not only legates, tribunes, centurions, legions, cohorts, maniples, centuries, discipline from below, command from above, vanguard, rearguard, patrols, reports, camp disposition, but in the quaestor, treasurer, with his apparatus of servants and controllers, engineers were needed with their tools and their ability to build bridges, build rams, build ramparts, block houses, guns and ships, quartermasters, with their wagons. An army of suppliers with their agents was needed, doctors and infirmaries, shops, arsenals, blacksmiths. Despite all of the above, the barbarians sometimes won victories. But the fundamental difference between Rome was the presence of a centralized state, which could put up 10 more legions instead of 10 defeated legions. And if you really need it, then 20. This state could concentrate the resources of a significant part of the ancient world against enemies. It was supplied with grain by Egypt. Well-aimed slingers were hired in the Balearic Islands from ancient times. Cavalry, the Romans had few of their own, were supplied by the Syrians, allied Gauls, etc. Many managed to defeat the Roman army in battle, but no one managed to defeat Rome, until the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. Stay with us, so as not to miss new publications.